Listen, there's a moment in every person's life when you finally see it clearly. No one is coming. Not your friends, not your family, not the universe, not luck. Nobody is coming to pull you out of that hole, fix your pain, or hand you a new life. And in that realization lies your awakening. See, we've been conditioned to wait for the right time, the right person, the right feeling. We wait for inspiration instead of creating it. We wait for motivation instead of mastering discipline. But the truth, every time you wait, your power leaks away. Your life changes the second you stop expecting a rescue and start becoming the rescuer. You are both the problem and the solution. You are both the storm and the calm after it. No one is responsible for the story you tell yourself every day. Your brain listens to every word you think. If you say, I can't, it becomes a command. If you say, I'm ready, your body begins to prepare for transformation. You are literally wiring your future by the energy you live in today. So ask yourself, what are you rehearsing? Fear or faith, doubt or direction? The human mind doesn't know the difference. It only follows the program you repeat. You don't need to be saved. You need to wake up. Wake up to the fact that you're powerful beyond measure. Wake up to the truth that pain was never punishment. It was a signal, a call to evolve. You have inside you everything you've ever needed: clarity, courage, creativity. But it activates only when you stop outsourcing your destiny, when you stop saying, someone should help me, and start saying, I am responsible for me. When you choose growth over comfort, discipline over excuses, and action over waiting, that's the day your new life begins. And yes, it's hard, but so is staying stuck. So is replaying the same story year after year. There will be no savior, no magical opportunity. The only person who can rescue you from your limits is you. You are the hero you've been waiting for, the one who turns pain into power, failure into focus, and waiting into winning. So get up, rewrite your story, because the world doesn't need another person hoping to be saved. It needs one more person brave enough to save themselves. Self-responsibility is the root of freedom because it is the moment you realize that your life is a direct reflection of your own choices, not the outcome of external circumstances. Most people spend years waiting for something outside of them to shift: the right person, the right job, the right motivation, or some miracle that will suddenly make everything fall into place. But the truth is, that day never comes until you take full ownership of who you are, where you are, and what you've created. Responsibility is not about guilt or blame. It is about awakening to your power. It's the recognition that you are the architect of your own experience, and the moment you stop giving away your authority, you start shaping your destiny consciously. When you accept full responsibility, you stop being a victim of circumstances. You begin to see that the job that drains you, the relationship that confuses you, or the habits that sabotage you, none of these define you. They simply reveal where you've been operating unconsciously. The mind loves comfort, even in chaos, because it knows how to survive there. Taking responsibility requires breaking that pattern. It demands that you step into the unknown, into the place where excuses no longer protect you. That's why so many people resist it, because it means letting go of the stories that make them feel safe. But safety and freedom can't coexist. You can't grow inside a comfort zone built by fear. True freedom begins when you say, it's on me. Those 3 words shift your vibration instantly. Suddenly, you stop waiting for the world to change and begin changing the world through your choices. Every decision, no matter how small, becomes a declaration of who you are becoming. You start realizing that your thoughts are not just fleeting clouds, but commands to your subconscious mind. Every time you repeat a complaint, your mind hears a limitation. Every time you speak with intention, your mind hears possibility. The energy you project determines the reality you attract, and self-responsibility is what keeps that energy clean and powerful. Taking responsibility is not a one-time act. It's a daily discipline. It's choosing awareness over autopilot. It's catching yourself when you start blaming the economy, your parents, your past, or your partner, and instead asking, what part of this is mine to change? That question is not self-punishment, it's empowerment. It puts the steering wheel back in your hands, because as long as you blame, you remain powerless, but when you own your part, you reclaim control over the outcome. That's how leaders are born, not from perfection, but from accountability. This principle also extends to your emotions. Self-responsibility means understanding that no one can make you feel anything without your permission. You are the thinker of your thoughts and the feeler of your feelings. If someone triggers anger, that emotion comes from within you. It's something unhealed asking for your attention. When you take responsibility even for your inner state, you begin to master yourself at the deepest level. You become emotionally intelligent, not reactive but responsive, and that's when your external world begins to mirror your internal strength. Freedom doesn't come from having everything under control. It comes from knowing that whatever happens, you can handle it. When you trust yourself to face discomfort, to learn, to grow, and to adapt, life stops being a battlefield and becomes a classroom. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice power. Every failure becomes feedback. Every moment of pain becomes an initiation into wisdom, and all of it begins with responsibility, the willingness to say, I created this, so I can recreate it. In that mindset, fear loses its grip. You stop being afraid of falling because you know you have the power to rise. You stop doubting your path because you trust the process. You stop craving validation because you understand your worth doesn't depend on anyone's approval. That is real freedom, not the freedom from pain or effort, but the freedom to respond consciously no matter what life brings. When you live in self-responsibility, you no longer need to be saved. You become your own source of strength. You stop chasing happiness and start generating it. You stop waiting for the future to rescue you and begin shaping it today. The truth is, no one is coming to save you because you were never meant to be saved. You were meant to awaken, and awakening begins the moment you take full responsibility for everything that you are. Your mind is the operating system of your life. Everything you see, believe, feel, and experience is filtered through it. Yet most people walk through life unaware of how their mental programming runs the show. They think thoughts just happen, that emotions just appear, that reality is random, but your mind is not a passive observer, it's an active creator. Every thought sends a signal to your brain, every belief shapes your perception, and every focus directs your energy. You don't experience life as it is, you experience life as you are. When you begin to understand this, you stop being a prisoner of circumstance and start becoming the programmer of your destiny. From the moment you wake up, your mind begins replaying old patterns. The same thoughts from yesterday trigger the same emotions, which produce the same behaviors, leading to the same results. That's why people feel stuck. They're running outdated software on an infinite system. The brain loves repetition because it conserves energy. It prefers the known to the unknown, but growth exists in the unknown. Transformation begins when you become conscious of what your mind is doing on autopilot. When you start observing your thoughts instead of being controlled by them, you gain the power to rewrite them. Every belief you hold is a code. Some codes empower you, I am capable, I can learn, I'm evolving. Others limit you, I'm not good enough, I can't change, this is just who I am. The brain doesn't know the difference between truth and repetition. It simply strengthens whatever it hears most often. If you repeatedly tell yourself you're stuck, your mind builds evidence to support that story. But if you start telling yourself you're growing, your mind will begin finding ways to make that story real. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, the one who can edit, delete, and install new programs at will. Neuroscience shows that every thought fires neurons, and repeated thoughts wire those neurons together, forming habits of thinking. The more you practice a pattern, positive or negative, the stronger it becomes. That's why it's not enough to simply think positive once. You must train your mind daily. Your focus is like a magnifying glass. It amplifies whatever you aim it at. Focus on problems, and they expand. Focus on possibilities, and they multiply. The mind doesn't care what you focus on. It just builds reality around it. When you treat your mind like an operating system, you realize you have the power to upgrade it anytime. Meditation, journaling, gratitude, visualization, these are not just spiritual ideas, they are reprogramming tools. When you sit still and observe your thoughts without judgment, you interrupt the cycle of reaction. When you visualize success, your brain releases the same chemicals as if it's already happening. When you practice gratitude, your mind rewires itself to see abundance instead of lack. These are not tricks, they are rewiring processes. You are literally teaching your brain a new way to be, but you must also understand this truth. Your mind can either serve you or enslave you. If you don't train it, it will run on fear, scarcity, and old pain. It will replay past traumas as if they're still happening and sabotage future opportunities before they begin. It will make you believe you can't, simply because that belief feels familiar. Awareness is the key. Once you see a thought clearly, you are not broken. You are just using your mind unconsciously. When you take the wheel, everything shifts. Suddenly, you realize that anxiety is just the body reacting to imagined futures, that guilt is attachment to the past, and that peace exists only in presence. You start to choose thoughts that align with who you want to become, not who you've been. The more you practice this, the more your mind begins to work for you, not against you. Your mind is your greatest ally when you understand it. It holds the blueprint of your potential. But potential means nothing without awareness and intentional programming. When you learn to direct your focus, regulate your emotions, and consciously choose your beliefs, you become unstoppable. The external world begins to bend in response to your internal command. Life stops happening to you and starts responding through you. That is the power of mastering your mind, the power to design your own reality. Emotional energy creates reality because every emotion you feel carries a frequency that shapes how you perceive the world and how the world responds to you. Most people believe emotions are just reactions, automatic responses to what happens around them, but emotions are actually powerful signals that broadcast your internal state to the external world. They influence the way you think, the way you act, and the opportunities you attract. The energy you live in becomes the environment you experience. If you live in fear, you'll find reasons to stay afraid. If you live in gratitude, life seems to open doors for you effortlessly. You are not just feeling emotions, you are transmitting them like radio waves, tuning your reality to match your inner vibration. Every emotion has a story behind it. Anger often hides disappointment. Sadness often hides love that couldn't be expressed. Fear hides the desire to protect something important. When you suppress emotions, you don't make them disappear. You store them in your body, where they become stress, fatigue, and disconnection. The energy that isn't expressed finds another way to speak, through your health, relationships, or lack of clarity. That's why awareness is essential. When you begin to observe your emotions without judgment, you start decoding their message. Every emotion is information. It tells you where your focus is, what you believe, and what needs healing or change. Think of your emotions as colors that paint your daily experience. When you wake up frustrated, the world looks dull, heavy, and unfair. When you wake up grateful, even simple things, sunlight, coffee, a breath, feel beautiful. The external world didn't change, your internal frequency did. That's the creative power of emotional energy. The thoughts you think are the seeds, but emotion is the water that makes them grow. A thought without emotional charge dies quickly. A thought infused with feeling becomes a belief, and beliefs create your life. Science confirms that emotions directly affect your biology. When you live in emotions like stress, anger, or anxiety, your body produces cortisol and adrenaline, chemicals designed for survival, not creation. These states narrow your focus and keep you locked in the past, expecting danger. But when you generate emotions like love, gratitude, or inspiration, your body releases chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, which expand awareness, boost creativity, and heal the body. Your emotional energy doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how your cells function, how your heart beats, and how your brain processes the world. The key is learning to shift emotional states consciously. Most people wait for something good to happen before they feel good. They let the external world dictate their inner world. But mastery comes when you can generate elevated emotions regardless of your circumstances. You can choose peace in chaos, gratitude in struggle, and hope in uncertainty. When you do this, you stop being a reactor and become a creator. Your emotional state begins to lead your life, not follow it. The world responds to energy, not words. You can speak of confidence while radiating insecurity, and people will feel the difference. You can talk about love while living in resentment, and your relationships will mirror that energy. What you feel consistently is what you attract. This is why emotional awareness is not just psychological, it's practical. Your energy becomes your currency in the world. When you start living with emotional intelligence, you realize you are in constant communication with life. You send out signals through your emotions, and life reflects them back as experiences. If you want to change your results, you must first change your energy. Start each day by choosing what emotion you want to live in: gratitude, courage, joy, peace, and hold that state until it becomes your new baseline. The more you practice this, the more your outer world begins to align with your inner world. You are not powerless against your emotions, you are their conductor. You can feel them fully, release them, and transform them. Every time you choose an emotion of higher energy, you upgrade your frequency and rewrite your reality. Life stops being random and starts becoming responsive. You begin to see that emotional mastery is not about controlling what you feel, but understanding that what you feel creates what you live. Your emotions are not just reactions, they are the creative language of your soul. And when you learn to speak that language with awareness and intention, your reality begins to change in extraordinary ways. Identity shift over motivation means real transformation doesn't come from temporary bursts of inspiration or moments of excitement. It comes from becoming a new version of yourself. Most people try to change their lives by forcing new habits while keeping the same identity. They say, "I want to be disciplined," but deep down they still see themselves as someone who gives up easily. They say, "I want to be confident," but their self-image is built on doubt. This is why motivation fades. It's like trying to run new software on an old system. The mind always returns to what feels familiar. Until you change your sense of who you are, your outer behavior will always revert back to match your inner story. Identity is the blueprint of your life. Every action you take, every emotion you feel, every goal you pursue, all flow from the image you hold of yourself. If you believe you are lazy, your brain will find ways to confirm it. If you believe you are powerful and disciplined, your brain will find evidence to support that instead. The subconscious mind doesn't care what is true, it only seeks what is familiar. That's why lasting change requires more than motivation. It requires identity reconstruction. You must stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and start asking, "Who do I need to become?" Think about it this way: motivation is the spark, but identity is the fire that keeps burning. You can listen to an inspiring message, feel empowered for a day, and then fall back into the same routines because the person you see in your mind hasn't changed. Your external progress can never exceed your internal belief system. If your goal is to be fit, wealthy, peaceful, or successful, you must align your inner identity with that reality. You can't act like a victim and expect to live like a leader. You can't keep calling yourself unlucky and expect abundance. The identity you live in determines the future you walk into. Changing identity begins with awareness. You must notice the labels you've been wearing, those quiet phrases like "I've always been this way," or "That's just who I am." Every time you repeat them, you reinforce the past, but identity is not fixed, it's programmable. You can consciously choose who you want to be and train your brain to accept that version as reality. This doesn't happen overnight. It's repetition, visualization, and emotional alignment. When you act in accordance with your new identity long enough, your mind stops questioning it. What was once effort becomes natural, and what was once a dream becomes your baseline. The process requires emotional honesty. You must be willing to let go of the identity that feels safe but keeps you small. Sometimes we cling to our old selves because they protect us from failure. If I say I'm not the kind of person who succeeds, then I don't have to risk trying. But growth demands surrender. You must release the version of you that was built on survival and step into the version built on creation. This is uncomfortable, but it's also where real freedom begins. When you start living as the person you want to become, Your thoughts, emotions, and habits naturally rearrange to support that reality. Motivation asks, how can I push myself? Identity asks, who would I be if this was already who I am? The difference is profound. When you identify as someone who is consistent, you no longer need motivation to show up. Showing up becomes who you are. When you identify as someone who is confident, you stop faking courage, you embody it. When you identify as someone who values growth, failure no longer breaks you, it teaches you. This shift is not about pretending, it's about remembering that your identity is a choice. Every belief, every habit, every limitation was learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. You can reinvent yourself at any moment by deciding to think, feel, and act from the reality you want to live in. The more you rehearse this identity, the stronger it becomes. Eventually, the line between who you were and who you're becoming disappears, and you realize transformation was never about adding something new. It was about becoming everything you were meant to be all along. Action is the only medicine because without movement, all knowledge, intention, and inspiration remain trapped in the mind as potential energy. You can read every book, attend every seminar, visualize every dream, but until you act, nothing changes. The universe responds to action, not ideas. The gap between who you are and who you want to be is not filled by motivation. It is bridged by consistent steps, even small ones, taken daily. Action is the language of transformation. It is the proof that you are serious about your growth, the signal to your subconscious mind that you are no longer waiting for change, you are becoming it. Most people get stuck in what could be called the learning trap. They consume information endlessly, waiting for the perfect plan or the right moment to start. But perfection is the enemy of progress. The truth is, clarity doesn't come before action, it comes through it. You discover who you are, what works, and where you need to go only by doing. Every action teaches you something. Sometimes it gives you results, sometimes it gives you lessons, but it always gives you movement. And movement, no matter how small, breaks the illusion of stagnation. You can't think your way into a new reality, you must act your way there. Action is also the antidote to fear. Fear grows in stillness. The longer you wait, the louder the doubt becomes, but when you move, when you make that call, start that project, or take that first step, the fear begins to shrink. It's not that the fear disappears, it's that your confidence expands. The mind respects evidence, not promises. When you act despite fear, you create evidence that you are capable, and your brain begins to rewire itself around that truth. Confidence is not built by wishing to be fearless. It's built by taking action while you're scared and proving to yourself that you can survive the discomfort. Many people overestimate the power of intention and underestimate the power of momentum. Intention sets the direction, but action builds the path. You don't need to know the entire staircase, you just need to take the next step. Consistent small actions, compounded over time, create irreversible change. A single workout may not transform your body, but 100 will. One day of focus may not change your future, but 100 days of discipline will. The brain loves repetition, it learns through habit. Every repeated action becomes a vote for the person you want to become. Each small step tells your mind, this is who I am now. Action also creates alignment between thought, emotion, and body. When you act on what you know, your energy synchronizes. You stop living in conflict between what you believe and what you do. That alignment generates power, a calm, grounded confidence that comes from integrity. You no longer need to talk yourself into change because your actions already reflect it. It's not about doing everything perfectly, it's about doing something consistently. Every time you act, you strengthen the muscle of self-trust. You teach yourself that you can depend on you. Waiting for motivation before taking action is like waiting to get warm before stepping near the fire. Motivation doesn't precede action, it follows it. Once you start moving, energy appears. Once you begin, life begins to respond. Doors open, ideas emerge, synchronicities happen, but only after you move. The universe rewards momentum because motion is proof of intention. When you act, you align with the flow of creation itself. Life doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you're doing. Action is sacred. It's where belief turns into evidence, where dreams touch reality. It's where fear transforms into confidence and resistance melts into progress. You don't have to take massive leaps every day. You just have to keep stepping forward. Progress isn't about speed, it's about consistency. Even slow motion is motion. Every action you take, no matter how small, sends a message to your mind and to the world. I am moving, I am becoming. And that's the truth about transformation. It doesn't happen because you wish for it, talk about it, or wait for it. It happens because you show up, take the step, and keep going even when it's hard. Action is the only medicine that heals fear, builds strength, and turns potential into power. Without it, dreams decay into regret. With it, you prove to yourself and to the universe that you're not just hoping for change, you are creating it, one step, one choice, one day at a time. Discipline becomes liberation because what feels like restriction at first eventually becomes the very thing that sets you free. People often see discipline as punishment, as something that takes away their comfort or spontaneity. But true discipline is not about limitation, it's about direction. It's the conscious choice to take control of your mind, your habits, and your energy instead of allowing chaos to rule your life. Freedom without structure is just disorder, and disorder leads to confusion, wasted time, and regret. Discipline gives your life order, and order creates peace. It's the bridge between desire and achievement, between potential and power. Every successful person, every fulfilled human being has built their life on discipline. It's the quiet force behind greatness, the willingness to do what must be done, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline doesn't mean you suppress your emotions or become robotic. It means you don't allow momentary feelings to dictate long-term outcomes. Feelings are fleeting, but purpose endures. Discipline keeps you loyal to your vision when motivation fades. It's the inner voice that says, "I'll do it anyway," when your mind screams for comfort. That's when true growth happens, not when things are easy, but when you keep showing up in the face of resistance. Most people live in cycles of starting and stopping because they mistake motivation for commitment. They act only when they feel inspired, but discipline doesn't depend on inspiration. It creates it. When you act with discipline, even on the days you're tired or uncertain, you build momentum, and momentum builds confidence. Every small promise you keep to yourself strengthens self-respect. You start to trust your own word. You stop seeking validation from others because you've proven to yourself that you can depend on you. That inner trust is one of the highest forms of freedom. Discipline is also deeply spiritual. It's the process of aligning your daily actions with your higher purpose. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are saying yes to your future self. You are prioritizing growth over gratification, creation over comfort, and that repetition, that consistency, rewires your brain to operate on purpose rather than impulse. It transforms chaos into clarity. The mind begins to settle because it knows it can trust your direction. You no longer live reactively, you live intentionally. That's the kind of peace no amount of temporary pleasure can replace. There's a paradox in discipline that most people don't see. What begins as effort eventually becomes effortless. The habits you once had to force become automatic. The workouts that felt painful become empowering. The focus that seemed unnatural becomes your new normal. This is because discipline changes your identity. You stop saying, "I have to," and start saying, "This is who I am." And when it becomes who you are, it no longer requires willpower. It becomes your nature. That's when discipline turns into liberation. Without discipline, life becomes unpredictable. You drift through days reacting to emotions, circumstances, and external forces. You chase comfort and end up enslaved by it. Comfort feels safe, but it silently drains your potential. Discipline, on the other hand, feels hard at first, but it leads to expansion. It gives you control over your time, your health, your finances, your mindset, every area that matters. It teaches you that the real freedom is not doing whatever you want, whenever you want. It's having the strength to choose what serves you best. Discipline also protects your energy. It creates boundaries around what matters. It helps you say no to distractions, to negative influences, and to habits that steal your focus. Every no you give to something meaningless is a yes to something greater. Through discipline, you learn that time is sacred. You stop scattering your energy and begin channeling it toward growth. That focus compounds. Days turn into months, and months into transformation. In the end, discipline is love. Love for your future, love for your potential, love for the version of you that deserves more. It's not about restriction, it's about devotion. You practice it not because you have to, but because you understand its value, and the reward, peace of mind, strength of spirit, and the quiet confidence of knowing that no matter what happens, you are in control of you. That is true liberation, the kind that can't be taken, only earned through the power of daily discipline.